Hey everyone, this is Allen over at Cobblers Plus in Denver, and today we're going to be resoling these Allen Edmonds Tates. They've got this lug patterned soft crepe sole on it. It's a blown crepe, so it's not actual crepe like some people may be more familiar with this type of material here. But we're going to be resoling them and putting on a Vibram 1705. It's got a little bit of a different tread pattern on it. This is what the gentleman picked out, so that's what we're going to go ahead and put on for him. Now, you can also get, of course, something that's more similar with the lug pattern, kind of like that there. You got color options if you really wanted to as well, from Vibram Stowe factory line, and of course they do just have regular black on it as well. I just grabbed these just to kind of give you something to, potentially want to pick out down the road if you want to be a little interesting, crazy. Kind of wish they had blue though in that. I don't see any blue in any of their lineup coming up anytime soon, at least with these types of soles. But this guy here, the 1705, it comes in the black, of course, and it also comes in a brown too, so if you ever end up needing that. But I'll go ahead and get ready to take this sole off. Now, I talked to this gentleman. We were actually originally supposed to leave the midsole intact on here, but unfortunately this sole is not coming off unless I cut through this midsole. And of course I'm missing my thinner, so hang on just a sec. Alright, sorry, I had to grab this stuff here. This helps deactivate the adhesives on the midsole area there. Now, Allen Edmonds been doing some weird things. They've been changing their soles around, it seems like, on some of their builds, and this seems to be one of them. And usually these soles you could actually pull them off fairly easily, but this one did not want to budge at all, and so I end up having to replace that midsole along with it, which is fine, I guess. Happens. Sometimes we plan for one thing and it's a whole nother thing, but what can you do about it? Anyways, but this sole, actually, as you can tell, of course, this is Goodyear welted, so it's stitched all around. But what's actually stitched is the midsole. It is not the actual sole that's stitched onto it. Once the midsole is stitched on, then the sole is glued on. This is why I like working on Allen Edmonds. Cuts like butter for us, stitches like butter and everything. Unless we come across an issue where somebody really wore out that welt badly, then I'm not happy. I don't like dealing with the damage to welt, and the person doesn't want to end up getting that welt replaced just because there's a small little chunk still left. I'm like, well, it's not completely gone, but I'd rather just get it resoled and not have the welt replaced. Well, unfortunately, through us cobblers, we do it all by hand. We're not, Allen Edmonds, where we have a machine that stitches on the welt. So definitely more time consuming. It is going to be, I guess you can say, more durable and last much longer with that welt being hand stitched, because it's not a machine. There's no issues or tension problems possibly. So you definitely get an upgrade when you have your welt changed by someone like us or another cobbler shop, because it's hand stitched, but it doesn't exactly cost a small amount. It's a pretty expensive thing to do when you're taking into consideration the cost of soles and welt, and depending what else may need to be done, it could really add up. But anyways, looks like the shank there is intact completely, which is another reason why I'd prefer to take it off this way. I can double check to make sure that shank isn't snapped, and we'll double check this other one too once we get it off. Now, Allen Edmonds, they use a few different versions of shanks. They got that wooden one like there was in here. Oops. And then they've got these guys here. These tend to be more on their leather sole dressy type that have a harder material. and sometimes they don't even have a shank too. You know, some of the models are supposed to not have shanks apparently, and I can't figure out which ones do, which ones don't. It just seems like it's almost hit and miss. I mean, I've seen Park Avenues with and without them too. If you're familiar with the Allen Edmonds shoes, most likely if you're watching this video you probably are, but I've seen a few different variants of them. It's kind of interesting. You know, maybe I think the ones that have a leather sole on it from the factory, they don't put the shank in because leather of course is stiffer. And then they've got the ones with the day-night sole. Those seem to sometimes have a shank, sometimes not. Most of them I believe have a shank though in them. But the softer one like this, if this thing did not have a shank, I would probably be not too happy with Allen Edmonds on that, because this material is just way too soft, and the shank is intended to give you support, better shock absorption, and stability as well, because naturally your foot does not bend from the ball of the foot back. It only bends at the toe area, so you need something to give you a little bit of better support on it. And that's where the shank comes into play. Now if we end up replacing it, replacing the shank, we put steel shanks in there. Now it's nothing too crazy, which I've been moving stuff around and cleaning, and I can't remember where I stuck my shanks. I was going to show you guys, but anyways, they're about 1/2 inch wide, so they're nothing too crazy, and they're thinner than what these wood shanks are too. Now, you know, some people, they end up saying, oh, I need to go through the airport or something, you know, and go through the metal detector, and I don't want to set it off. You're gonna have to take your shoes off either way. Here in Denver, DIA, it's an international airport, you have to take your shoes off. It doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're taking your shoes off. So they're gonna go through the scanners and everything, and if somebody sees a steel shank in there, they know shoes have steel shanks. It's actually part of their training and everything, is to identify what is a steel shank and what can potentially be a weapon. So, you know, they see hundreds of those shanks come through. You're not the only ones. You're not special if you have a steel shank in there. It's a lot of footwear has that, especially nicer higher end ones. Alright, so we've got the soles off. All that cork came out along with it. The shank is glued in there pretty good, so we're not having to take it out. Both of them seem to be intact. At this point I'm going to go ahead and clean out all that cork, pull all the stitches, and glue up and fill in that cork again. Alright everybody, we're back here again now. So I pulled all the stitches out and everything, and double check the welt to make sure everything is fine. The welt is completely intact here, so we didn't need to do any kind of repair work on that. But I've got everything glued up, and at the moment I've got the midsole in the oven right now. Now as far as our cork pieces go, if I can find one, there it is. Alright, in my box down below, but these are the types of cork pieces that we use to fill everything in. Now some of you may be familiar with Allen Edmonds' hot cork method. Now unfortunately, Cobblers, for us, it's not practical for us to have a hot cork machine, mainly because it's designed for mass production, and not all the shoes that we have come through here are Goodyear welted like this, where they need a cork filler. Some are Blake stitched, some are Western boots, some have other forms of builds and styles, some have a midsole that's used basically as a Goodyear welt style build, but there's a lot of different variants out there. Oh, hang on just a second. Sorry about that. Had to grab the front real quick, and while I was off camera I had to stick it together because it was already warmed up anyways, but just took it off the press. It's still fairly warm right now. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this all around, but I already forgot where I left off at. Now as far as the cork goes here that we're using, actually, that I showed you, it is designed to fill in the gap between the welt stitching on the inside. So cork is designed for that, as well as support features, moisture wicking away as well, and a little more breathability. So cork is cork. It just comes in different forms and shapes and sizes. In other words, you know, sometimes we'll get a whole brick of cork in, and that's actually what they use in the hot cork process. It heats it up and melts it, and you know, we use those for build-up material on other shoes that have like cork footbeds or soles on them or anything else like that. But when we're filling it in on a pair of Allen Edmonds, that's all it is quite literally just filling it in. Sorry, keep getting interrupted. But anyways, at this point, we've got the midsole on and everything, and I need to stitch this all up with the Goodyear welt stitch machine, and then afterwards we're going to be gluing this sole on. So we'll go ahead and move over to our stitch room. Now, you saw me cut off the edges. I'm not going to trim it out just because it's cut fairly close already, and the stitcher has a guide on it that follows the guide of the welt. It doesn't follow the guide of the sole. So even if the sole sticks out just a little bit, even if at 1/8 of an inch if it's stuck out, but it's usually less than that, it will still follow the guide of the midsole mainly. But yep, we'll go ahead and get that taken care of, and we'll see you back in the stitch room for that. Alright, so we're over at our stitch room now, and we're about to use our outsole stitcher. We call it the curved needle, and just because it's got a curved needle like this inside there. Clip that off there. Alright, now these machines, they do stitch the shoes upside down, so when we come to stitching it, this top stitch right here, we have a brown on it, and then the bottom one's a black. So when you flip the shoe back over, the black will end up being on the top and the brown on the bottom. We could pick whatever colors we want. So we've got red, blue, white. I've got green on order and a few other ones as well. I'm out of stock of at the moment, but we'll get those in soon. So if you really want to be fancy and get specific colors. But anyways, I gotta spray it down with some water to help lubricate everything. Helps it slide along better. And I'll go ahead and get started. At this point, I like to stop it while it's hanging in there pretty okay. Cut off the end right there, just so it doesn't get in the way when I come back around on the stitcher. Alright, there we go. Okay, looks pretty alright there. Okay, now as far as here on the bottom, you can see that the stitches aren't countersunk in there. And that's usually not done on a midsole. Midsole is just much too thin to be able to channel it and allow the stitches to sit underneath. The other thing is, anyways, the stitches will be protected by the Vibram sole that's going on over top, so there's no need anyways to do the channeling on here. I've adjusted the blade so that it almost doesn't even stick out at all on here, so it doesn't cut open a channel for that stitch to sit into, because we don't want that midsole getting damaged. But anyways, that's how the stitching looks. I'll go ahead and finish off the other one off camera, and we'll meet you back in the other room. I'll go ahead and glue everything up. I won't waste your time on it as far as gluing it all, but when it's time to stick the soles on, then I'll let you guys see how that process works, and you'll see the press in action at that point. So we'll see you later. All right, so we're back here again. Now it's time to go ahead and glue the sole on. And I just pulled this out of the oven, so it's nice and malleable, and it allows us to also work this just right, because these were a tight squeeze. Beautiful. All right, all right. But also that heat helps activate the adhesive a little bit better too. So now that's about it on that guy. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and stick it on the press, so I'll show you guys that now. All right, so we're over here at our press now. This is our heel section here. They're removable, we could change them out. We have different sizes and everything. And then right here we have our foot press. Go ahead and move that out of the way. We'll go ahead and stick it on, and voila. So there's foam pads right here at the bottom that just kind of slide around. We can flip over and everything, and it helps distribute the pressure a little bit better, allowing the adhesives to get, you know, bound in every little nook and cranny better. We only need just a few seconds basically on it, because this is contact cement. I mean, technically even hammering can do the trick. I mean, before presses, that's what cobblers used, was just hammers. But nowadays technology makes it a little bit easier and makes it more secure, because the whole process, actually what happens is, with our presses especially, it's not a single foot press, and because we start out with the heel, it starts moving any air pockets forward. Now at this point you can see I have this wedge right there. This helps me pinpoint more accurate pressure areas where I need the press to, you know, apply most pressure, and it just moves any air pockets and bubbles forward as it goes, and so it pushes it out. That prevents squeaking, and also it prevents the soles from, you know, potentially coming undone in any spot. Any weak point can potentially make this sole come undone, and we do everything we can to allow all the air to escape, and the presses, they really help with that. But anyways, at this point, that's all we have to do with this guy. I just need to trim off a little bit of the axis. There's not much left. I'm also going to go through with our welt press and press this down just a little bit more to make sure these corners are sticking nicely. And then I gotta leave it overnight to cure. I could technically leave it for about half hour roughly, maybe an hour, and it's in workable condition at this point. But I'd much rather allow it a full night to cure before, you know, I continue sanding it up, because the heat that is created by the friction of the sander, it's heat, so it can potentially start to deactivate the sole's adhesion just a little bit, and we don't want that to happen. But anyways, that's it for today. I unfortunately had a off day today, basically, where I was running around most of the morning, and I had to leave these last night as well, so it's turning out to take me a little bit longer than expected, than normal, to do these with the curing and everything. But we'll get it done and taken care of properly, though. Either way, we're not taking any shortcuts on this. So all right, we'll see you tomorrow then. All right, so we're back here again. I allowed these to cure overnight so that the adhesion takes hold very well. And now I've sanded out the edges with a rough sander, and we're moving on to a smoother sandpaper belt. I didn't show you the other sanding process. It's pretty basic, just sanding off some of the other stuff. But now we're going to smooth everything out here with our 100 grit sandpaper, and up here we have what's called a numkeg. Kind of gives us that finishing touch up. Basically, we touch up the edges and whatever other parts we may need to. But we'll go ahead and get started now. Alright, so it's nice and smooth now. Now I'm going to go ahead and put on an edge dressing, even though This is all black anyways here. I'll still put on an edge dressing, kind of helps with that leather welt right there to fill it in, and just makes it a little bit nicer. Plus there's always going to be a little fine line of glue left no matter what, that's just really fine, that may be possibly visible. I mean, regardless of how much you sand it out, it's gonna be there. But the edge dressing will help take care of that to make it all uniform, and then we're gonna finish it out on our machine, buffing it up. We're not going to varnish it because varnishing is for leather, and the only leather part is the welt here, and the heat process may potentially actually deactivate the adhesive, so we don't want to do that. We're just going to use brushes. But we'll go ahead and move on to the shine machine and get these finished up. I can't remember if we're doing a full treatment on them. I'm gonna have to double check the ticket, but we'll take care of that as well though. All right, so we'll see you in a bit. All right, everyone, so we're back again. I've got the edges all taken care of. They look a little nicer and shinier now, just at least a little bit on the leather area, and that midsole definitely looks nicer. I buffed it over with a little bit of wax too. These weren't marked down for a full treatment on the uppers, but you know, we'll still at least go through and buff them over with some wax. They weren't in bad shape at all on these. It just definitely needed some new soles. So it looks like this gentleman has been doing pretty good with whatever he's doing with taking care of the uppers, but we still like to put a little wax on them, just at least a small amount. Helps protect it and looks a little bit more presentable. But I keep having dust stick to it. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video on how we resole a pair of Allen Edmonds Tate shoes that have the rubber, or not rubber, the crepe soles on them, and we put on a Vibram 1705 crepe sole on there, blown crepe, so this will definitely last longer than whatever they had on here originally. We also replaced that welt, the cork inside and everything, and stitched that, not the welt, the midsole. So we stitched that midsole down and then adhered that rubber sole. So hopefully the next time he comes in, we're not having to replace that midsole. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And you know, usually it costs extra, but if we catch that there's no other choice but to replace it, you know, sometimes we just kind of suck it up. I mean, I could give the gentleman a call and say, hey, turns out we have to replace the midsole. It's going to cost, you know, such and such amount extra because there was this and this damage. But, you know, I just don't feel right about doing that. And if it's something not too crazy, I mean, if I had to really replace the whole welt and everything else, if it's visible, we'll definitely have to catch that and let you know about it, and you can make that decision on what you want to do. But you know, if it wasn't visible and it's nothing major, we'll take care of it. You know, we try to take care of everyone that comes through here, everyone that works with us as best we can. But anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this video, you know, and it's been fairly informative, the process that it takes to resole a pair of shoes. It's a little bit different sometimes process amongst different styles of shoes, brands, you know, different sole options as well, but it gives you an idea of what it looks like. And you know, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. You could always message or give us a call, or if you're local here in the Denver area, you can always stop by as well, and we'd be happy to help however we can. Otherwise, if you're not local and you'd like us to work on your shoes, you're more than welcome to ship them out to us. Just go to our website, CobblersPlusCO, and under the ship and order tab, just follow the instructions to ship them out, and we'll be happy to service whatever items you may have.